Hello and welcome to the tutorial series that will help start your game development journey. In this series, I will take you through the entire process of creating a 3D game from scratch. By the end, you will go from having absolutely zero experience in both 3D modeling and programming to having built a fun city builder / colony sim that you can show off. This tutorial is meant for people with absolutely no experience. However, there is one prerequisite, and that's that you know how to download and install software. We will be using Blender and Unreal Engine in this tutorial. You will need to download and install both. Links to each of those are in the description. Note that you'll need to download and install the Epic Game Store in order to download and install Unreal Engine because it's in the Epic Game Store itself. I will be using Blender 3.6 and Unreal Engine 5.2. But as long as you have some version of Blender 3 and some version of Unreal Engine 5, you should be able to follow along just fine. Once you've got those downloaded and installed, we'll get started. So we're going to start with Blender. If you don't care to learn the 3D model aspect of this whole part of the process, you can feel free to skip these parts and go to the Unreal Engine section, which you can use the chapters to do so. And you can download the models that I'll be making in Blender using the links below. But for those of you that stuck around, welcome to Blender. When you open Blender, you'll have some sort of screen like this. And what we're going to do is click this General button to open a new General file. And now we've got the starting Blender cube, the classic here. So there's a couple of things that you should note if you've never used Blender before. There's a lot of buttons and panels going on here. So let's just cover a couple of the basics. So first, if you click and hold in your scroll wheel and then move your mouse around, you can tell that you can rotate the camera here. If you want to move around within Blender, you can pan, and you can pan using the shift key and then holding in the scroll wheel on the mouse and moving around, and that's how you can pan. And a pretty intuitive way to scroll is simply scrolling the mouse wheel up and down. And those are kind of your ways to navigate in Blender. You can kind of rotate the camera around and then drag the camera around and zoom in as necessary. Another good couple of quick hotkeys that are useful when navigating in Blender are 1, which brings you to the very front of your model, and then 3, which takes you to the side of it. Those are a couple of handy ones as well to keep it. Okay, so to get started on our first model, so what are we making? We are going to be making a ground tile that we'll be using for our game. These ground tiles will make up our grid that we'll be using to interact with. So all we really need to do here, we've got pretty much the shape worked out, but it's just a little too tall. So what we can do is we can scale the cube down, and we can do that by scaling with S. The hotkey S will scale it. You press S and then move your mouse around. You can make this thing however big or small that you want. What I'm going to do here is scale it, but then after I hit S, I'm going to hit Z, and that's going to lock the scaling to only be on the Z axis. And so then we can just make it a little shorter. So we'll get it to something like that, probably is fine. Cool. So now the only thing we really need to do is to add some color. But in order to see color in Blender, you have to be able to render it. And so rendering in Blender, you have a few different rendering things going on up here for your viewport. So you've got like this mesh type thing, which allows you to see through it. This one, which adds no color at all. That adds some shading, but this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do the viewport shading on the very far right side here. You notice that the color itself hasn't changed though, and that's because the default material is this color. So what we're gonna do to change that is after clicking on this cube in object mode, we're going to go over to the right hand side, and in this panel here, there's this red little circle thing. When you hover it says material. I'm gonna click on that, and you can see the material here in the top of the panel. We're going to rename the material. I'm going to call it ground. And then we're going to change the base color. I'm going to make it like a green for grass, but you can do whatever you want. Cool. And then once you've got your color picked out, what we're going to do is we're going to save the file by going to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this Ground Tile. Okay. And so we've got the ground tile saved. Next, we're going to need to export the model itself so that we can use it in Unreal Engine. So let's click File, Export, and we're going to export as an FBX file. So we're going to click on that, FBX. And then there's a couple of settings that we're going to want to mess with before we just rush and click Export FBX. On this right-hand side here, under Object Types, we're only going to export the mesh. We don't really care about any of this other stuff. So we'll just click the mesh, and then we'll come down to the geometry section. And in the geometry section, we're going to change it from normals only to edge. And then we can export the FBX file. All right, that's done. Nice. And now before moving into Unreal Engine, we're going to make one more model. And this will be the model for the town hall, or like kind of your central base building. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the current file and we're just going to save it as another name. So I'll call it Town Hall. And then I'll just take this ground tile that already exists, and let's change the color here for the material. We'll call it concrete. And I'm going to change the color to be, I guess, kind of back to what it was, like this like grayish color. That's fine. That'll do. I'm also going to scale it down some just because I don't want it to interfere with any other meshes that we end up spawning maybe next to it or anything. We can always come back and adjust this if we need to, but for the time being, I'm scale it down just a little bit. A fun thing about this though is if we scale it just by pressing S and scaling, the height on it actually gets smaller as well because it's scaling every axis. But if we press X and then Shift Z, instead of only scaling the Z axis, it scales everything except the Z axis, which is pretty convenient. And so we're gonna scale that down just a little bit, and that looks pretty good. And next we're going to add a new mesh onto this, and that'll be the building that we're actually building here. So to add things in Blender, you're gonna press Shift A. That's gonna bring up the add menu. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here, but we just need a mesh and cube. I'm going to throw a cube on our model. Note that our concrete is currently blocked because of the size of this model, so we're going to S, scale it down, and make it maybe like that. That probably works. But it's not perfect because we've got half our model underground, and that doesn't work for us. So we need to move this. In order to move things, you're going to press... No, I'm just kidding. You have to press G for grab, and you're going to grab that model. But you can also still press Z to keep it locked to the Z axis, and we'll move that up. So it's about even with concrete. Cool. Next, we're going to make a door for this building. And in theory, we could add additional materials or objects or meshes or whatever to this model if we want to. But there's another way to handle that. And we can do this through edit mode. And so with our new cube selected, you can either press tab, the hotkey, or you can come up here and you can change it from object mode to edit mode. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go into edit mode. And you can always tell that you're in edit mode because it says edit mode, but also because you can't select anything else. you're just pretty much, you can only mess with the object that you selected to go into edit mode in. Okay, so now that we're here, we're going to need to add additional edges into this mesh so that we can kind of build out our door that we want to build. So in order to do that, you kind of hover over the model that you're doing and do Control R, and then move your mouse around. You'll see this yellow line pop up. And we're going to want to do one horizontally here, so you can left click to start the option and move this up and down. Or if you want it smack dab in the middle, like I do, you can just right click it. Boom, that's right there. Next, we're going to add another one underneath it. Maybe something like that. It's probably fine. And then we're going to add a few more vertically. There. And there. There. Oh, wrong one. And then one there. Sure, that's fine. So now that we're in, this will be our door right here. And one thing we can do to make sure that people know that that's our door is we can add some borders around it. So to do that, we're going to select the face select mode, which is up here in the top right hand corner, this big square. And we're going to select these. Now note, if you just randomly select these, it'll change. It won't let you select multiple. So you need to hold down shift while you do that. Hold down shift and select all of these. Now what we're going to do is we're going to press E to extrude the mesh. Extrude these faces outwards. And you can do this both ways. It can go inwards, it can go outwards. And if you want to be super precise about it, you can just type a number that you want it to be. So in this case, I'm going to do 0.04. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. So there we go. That's the border to our door. But something else we probably need to do is color this building up and make it look a little prettier. So let's add some materials. Let's do a new material. Call it building base. And then we can change it to whatever color we want, because we made the game. It's choices. Want to make it like an orange or something? Fine. And then you can select all of these faces of our door border. Yep. And then select the door itself, I guess, too. And then we will, on the materials panel, add material by clicking that like plus button right there. Then we're going to add a new material. Call it door. And we'll change that to be a brown. And then with this color selected and all of these faces still selected, you're going to click the assign button. And so now it looks black. It's probably just the lighting. So let's move this light. Oh wait, we got to go back into object mode and hover this light, and then G to grab it. We're going to do it on the Y axis. Yeah, that looks. Yeah, that's better. Cool, that'll do. All right, so we'll save that. Control S, or file save, the whole ordeal. Feel free to take as much time as you want to on this, by the way. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to keep it super simple. But if you want to go all out and make a crazy town hall, feel free. Once you've got your town hall looking exactly the way you want, you can come back into your file here. Make sure you're in object mode, and then you can left click and drag to select everything. And then you want to make sure that this base here has the like yellow outline, and that everything else is like the orangish red color. And if it's not, you can shift and left click on this to make sure that it is. If it already was and you just followed my instructions, you can just re-click it and with shift down, obviously. And this should reselect your model here. And What I like to do is I like to personally save a second copy, just because I like to have the ability to make like quick like color changes and stuff like that, without affecting or risk affecting like the base model itself. Because what we're about to do is we're going to join these models. So with these selected, you're going to click Control J, and that's going to join J for join meshes together. And then we'll save it. And once it's saved, we'll click File. We'll go to Export. We're going to export as an FBX. We'll call it Town Hall. And we're going to make sure that we only have mesh selected and that our geometry is on edge. It is, so we'll export. We'll save that. And now we can take these into Unreal Engine. Okay, so to get into Unreal Engine, you're going to open up the Epic Game Store, which you might see something like this by default. You'll go into the Unreal Engine section, and you will launch Unreal Engine. Once Unreal Engine opens, you'll see some sort of screen that kind of looks like this right here. What you're going to want to do is click Games. Make sure blank is selected. You want to make sure Blueprint is selected over here. Target platform, keep as desktop, and all this you can kind of just keep the same. Make sure you know where you're wanting to save your project location, and then give your project a name. I'm going to call mine Tutorial. We'll create. And welcome to Unreal Engine. Yeah, so this is kind of your main screen of your new game that you've just made. So to start things off, we are on an untitled level. We're going to go ahead and give the level a name and save it. I'm going to call it Main. With our city builder, we're really not going to be changing levels, so we'll just have one main level, and that'll be that. Some things to note, especially if you watch the Blender section of this video, moving around in Unreal Engine is different. Surprise, surprise. One thing that they do have in common is scrolling up and down will zoom you in and out. However, Shift, well, I guess Shift and Scroll actually still technically pan, but just the scroll, clicking the scroll button pans you. Really, the way to rotate, though, is with right-click. My personal favorite way to navigate is just holding right-click and then using WSAND, just like you would in any movement for any game. So yeah, that's kind of how you move around the viewport within Unreal Engine. Next, what we're going to do is click on Content Drawer, which is on the bottom left-hand side of the window. You can't see it right now because my head is blocking it. We're going to click on it. That's going to open up this window here. And so this is the file, like all of your contents of your game. What we're going to do is we're in content currently. We're going to stay in content, and we're going to add a new folder. We're going to call it Base Blueprints. We're going to open up Base Blueprints, and in here we're going to add a couple of blueprint classes. The first one we're going to add is a game mode, and I'm going to call this CB game mode. And then we're going to add a player controller, and we're going to call it CB controller. So we can do a couple of things here, I think. So in game mode, we're going to, no, it's not actually, it's in controller. In controller, we're going to go to the show mouse cursor. We're going to click that to be true. We're also going to allow or enable click events. Save that. And then we're going to create one more blueprint class. This one is going to be an actor. We're going to call it CB camera. And now double click on CB camera. That'll open up your camera window here. In fact, close out of this and then move this. I like to have mine all up here just so it's easily clickable and accessible. All right, so within CB camera, we're going to add a couple of components. So within the default scene root, we're going to add a spring arm. And then within the spring arm, we're going to add a camera. This spring arm, well, let's make it a little longer. Like, that's fine. Cool. And then we're also going to rotate it. So click on this rotate thing up here, or you can click E, hotkey for that, and then do this right here. Do it like, that seems fun. All right, so we're going to compile and save that, and then we'll go into edit. We're going to go into Prjoect Settings, and we're going to go into Maps and Modes, which is right up here towards the top. We're going to change this game default mode. We're going to change that to our CB game mode. And then we can click the selected game mode area here just to bring down all this. And we're going to change default pawn class to none, HUD to none, and player controller class will be CB controller. We're also going to change the editor startup map to be our main, and the game default map to be our main as well. All of these settings automatically save, so you can just exit out. All right, so next we're going to stay in the CB camera, and we're going to go into the event graph over here. You can delete this stuff, don't need it. All right, now within this event graph, we're going to right click, and that'll bring up our menu. And then searching in this menu, you can get player controller. And then from this get player controller, we're going to take the return value, drag it out. And we're going to say set view target with blend. And we'll select that. And then we'll connect these two there. And we'll also need to drag out this new view target. We'll drag that value out and put self. And so basically what this is doing is it's telling the controller to get its view from the self, which in this case is the camera. We can compile and save that now. And then we will go into our content drawer and we're going to pull up our CB controller. If you ever get this screen, by the way, you can just click open full blueprint editor and that'll pull that up. Okay, and so in the event graph of the CB controller, we're going to delete this event tick. We won't need it right now. And from event begin play, we're going to do set input mode, game, and UI. And on the player controller section here for this value, we're going to drag that out and we're going to put self to reference this controller. Okay. And then we're also going to change this in mouse lock mode. We're going to change that to lock always. And under hide cursor during capture, we're going to uncheck that. And once we've done that, we're going to drag out from the set input mode, game, and UI. And we're going to search for cast to CB. Boom. And then under the object section, we're going to drag that out and we're going to get view target. Okay, and then we can compile and save that. All right, so next we're going to set up a few functions within the CB camera. So we're going to, on the within CB camera in the functions section over here on the left, we're going to click the plus button to add a function. And we're going to call the new function move up. And then within this function, what we're going to do is just drag this out and do add relative location. And we'll choose the default scene root. And then we're just going to choose the Y value here. We're going to make that like 25 or something. Compile and save that. Then if you come over here to the functions, click on move up. We're going to click Control D, Control D, Control D. And we're going to change each of them to move down, move right, and move left. And we'll go into each of these and we'll just, so like on move down, we'll just change this to negative. And then on move right, we'll change this to 0 on the Y, but 25 on the X. We'll have to come back and adjust these, so we'll see. And then on the move left, 0 and negative 25. So then move up is 25, move down is up, change the wrong one. Negative 25. That one's 25 on the X. Okay, perfect. We'll test that out and see how that works. Another thing we'll need to do though is we'll need to add the input mappings here. So within your content drawer in the base blueprints folder, you can right click and we'll add a new folder, call it input. Then within the input folder, we'll create an right click, go to input, and we'll do a input mapping context. You can call this something like player input or something. Note that this is not like standard like naming convention or whatever. This is a beginner tutorial. We're just kind of trying to fly through this. In addition though, we're also going to add few input actions. So I'm going to call this one move up. Could not capitalize both letters. And then duplicate using Control D, Control D, Control D. And we'll just change these. Well, we'll just rename each of these to the appropriate name. So move down, move right, and move left. Left. And then you can go into each of these, and for each of them we're going to change the value type to be axis 2D. Save it. Save it. And then we're going to go into player input, and we're going to add a few mappings. So you'll press 1, and then on the none, we're going to change that to move up. And under this, you can click this keyboard and just press the W key to set it to there. And then on the modifiers, we're going to change that. We're going to add one and make it a swizzle input axis. And then you're going to do that for each of the actions that we've just made. Okay, and then once you've got all of those added, you can save it and close it out. All right, we're going into our CB camera again, and we're gonna go to the event graph. And then here in the event graph, from this get player controller, we're gonna drag this value out, and we're gonna get the enhanced local player input system. Quick note here, any of these like lines that you see, you can double click on them and it'll add a reroute node, which you can then use to move around. Then from the enhanced input local player subsystem, we're going to drag that out and we're going to get an is valid node, this guy with the white question mark, and then we're going to come and bring these two together, and then off of, actually we'll connect that later, we have to pull it off of the enhanced input local player subsystem, and we're gonna pull this off and do add mapping context, and then from the is valid node, like when it's valid we're gonna connect it, when it's not we're not. And under the add mapping context section, under mapping context, we're going to get player input. You can compile and save that. So basically what this is doing is telling the camera that, hey, we're going to be using an enhanced input local player subsystem, and we're going to be using the mapping context that we just made. But what we still need to do is put those maps into the controller itself. So here within the controller, we're going to right click under like event begin play somewhere, and you can just type up like move up. Go. And from this move up section, we're going to, from triggered, we're going to get actor of class. And we'll do CB controller. Actually, a better way to do this would be on event. So after cast a CB camera, we can promote this to a variable. And so now we've got CB camera down here in the variable, and so we'll just pull this off. And from here, we'll drag this type move up. And so we're accessing the function move up that we made in our CB camera actor class. And then all we need to do is whenever this action is triggered, snowflake, we're gonna connect this, and it will go through the move up function from the CB camera. And we're just going to do the same thing for each of the actions that we've made. All right, boom. So those are all set up, ready to go. We'll compile and save that. Then we go into our main level, go into our content drawer, and go to the base blueprints. Get our CB camera and drag it out onto the map. It might sync, and if it does, just add some Z value to it. Let's see, what is what? This. So let's rotate it like -90. That'd be the -90, or just the 90. Yeah, so rotate it 90 on the z-axis. I think this will give our move up, down, and everything proper response, but I guess we'll see. All right, and then we'll save, and we're gonna test it. So click the play button. Boom, boom, boom. So we're here. You can see that we at least have this angle correct. Yeah, we're moving around. Up, this is wrong. Up and down is right, but left and right are wrong. Okay, so let's change that. So let's go back into CB camera. Okay, so this seems to be the correct configuration. Move up is at +25 on the Y. Move down is -25 on the Y. Move right is -25 on the X. And move left is +25 on the X. If we click play, again, you might have to click here. It didn't move for me at one point, so maybe clicking on the screen gets it like activated or whatever. But you can see we can move around. Nice. And then if you hit notice, because remember we locked our mouse to the screen, so you can't get to it. If you just click escape, it will get you out of there. Okay, so now we're gonna actually get to interact with the models that we made. So what we're gonna do is go into content drawer, and we're gonna make a new file inside content, or sorry, a new folder inside content. We'll do folder, and we'll call this ground tile, or grid, or something like that. So then we'll open up our grid folder, and we'll right click. We'll import to game/grid or whatever. And we'll find wherever it was that we saved our models. And then once you've clicked to import that, you'll be given this option here. And really you definitely don't need to worry about it now, but nanite's really cool, and you guys should look into it. But for now, we're just going to import all. And then once that's been imported, you can see that you've got your mesh for your ground like material and your static mesh ground tile. Okay, so then we're going to go to back into content. We'll make a new folder, call it buildings. And then within buildings, we'll open that up. We'll click a new blueprint class. It'll be an actor. What we're going to do though is create the parent that we'll use for all of the buildings. So we'll call this building base, like the base model of like all of our buildings. And then we'll double click building base to open it up, come in here, and we're going to add a couple of things. So within building base, we're going to, in the default scene root, we'll add a static mesh. And then also within the default scene root, we'll add a collision box collision. Okay, and then we can compile and save that. And we can go into the content drawer. We'll right click and then we'll import, actually, within buildings, actually let's do this. Yeah, within buildings, do a new folder. We'll call this blueprints. Where all of our blueprints will go. We'll move the building base into there. And then we'll create a new folder here and we'll call this one town hall. Then within town hall, we'll import our town hall. Again, check out nanite, but not necessary here. Import all. There we go, opens up. And so then we'll go back into the buildings folder and into the blueprints and into building base. And then within building base, we're just so we have a general idea of kind of, so that this will match up on most of our building models. We can go to static mesh here. We'll change that to be town hall. Feels a little big, but I guess we'll see how it looks in game. Let's go to the box collision, move that up, and then we'll change the scale to be however appropriate. That's big. Seems a little big, maybe. Like that fit there. We just need it to up. Make it like. Alright, that's fine. Then we'll compile and save that. And what we'll do is within building base, we'll right click on the building base in the content drawer and we'll create child blueprint class up here at the top. And this child will be called town hall. So this is our town hall actor. Then we'll right click again and do create child blueprint class. We'll call this ground tile. And we'll go into ground tile. And then on the static mesh object over here, or component, I should say, we're going to click on static mesh and we're going to change that to our ground tile model. Very green. We'll get to that shortly, I guess, though. All right. File and say, oh, wait, we need to change the box. Change this. Does not need to be that tall. Maybe 0.5 will do. Yeah, something like that should be fine. Okay. Then we'll compile and save that. A quick note on colors. Colors do not transfer super well from Blender to Unreal Engine. So we'll have to change those manually, which I'll show you how to do. But in the meantime, we're just going to take this ground tile blueprint that we made, and I'm going to move that over to our grid file or folder. So that it... Oh wait, I'm going to need to rename this first. BP. Then we will move it. Okay, now we've got that there. Perfect. Then let's go ahead and change those colors. So on the ground, my green is very green. You double click on this material, it'll open up as a window. Now, while the base color itself is fine, one main issue is going to be the roughness. Actually, probably going to need to change that base color to that. But the roughness is a key feature that will basically determine how shiny this thing's going to be. We're just going to assign a constant to it, and I'm going to put it pretty high, like 0.8 or something. Yeah, that's probably fine. And keep in mind that this will apply to the building materials as well. So if we go into town hall, all of these are going to be the same way, where we need to add some roughness to it. This obviously won't apply to every single color. There are some colors that you'll want to be shiny, but in these cases, going pretty rough is probably better. All right, once you've got your colors kind of figured out the way that you want them, go into the main level here. And what we're going to do is just to show you, give you an idea of how these are going to look like. Go into our content drawer, go into our buildings and blueprint. So actually, let's do the grid first. Yeah, let's get our grid tile, put our grid tile out. And I mean, you can, make put these as many as you want, whatever. Just for show. I'll put like 5 out or something. Not gonna look good, but again, it's just for show. All right, and then we're going to go into our blueprints for our town hall. We're gonna grab our town hall, and I'm gonna rotate that like 80, I guess. Too much. Yeah, something like that. That'll be fun. Where'd our camera go? Is it all the way down there? I don't know. We'll figure that out. But we'll just move this to where, move this to where it's floating properly. All right, cool. And then we will save that. And let's go ahead and open this up. And there we go. If you click on it again, click on the screen. Okay, so I got an error last time. It said it was not able to access the camera through this like variable here. So we'll just delete that and we'll just go with my original idea. Instead of using that variable, you'll just call get actor of class in each of these input actions within CB controller. And the actor that you're going to get, the class that you're going to get is CB camera. So you'll just call that each of these actions and then call the appropriate functions. And now when we go in there, you can see we've got our guys here chilling. If we click the play button and we click on the screen, we can move around and we see our cool little town hall sitting on some grass tiles here, chilling. Note that if you go into the middle right now, it doesn't work properly. It looks like we've got to add some sort of collision here that the camera just doesn't sink into the nothingness. But we'll get into that on the next episode. So there you go. You've officially started your game development journey. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with this series. In the next episode, we're going to go into actually spawning the ground tiles dynamically so that you don't have to go in there and place them manually. In addition, we're going to make the ground tiles interactable so that we can actually be able to spawn something like this town hall in using player input instead of having to do it on the front. So yeah, if you have any questions about the tutorial, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to get to you and help you out. I believe in you. You can do this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.